Welcome to Peek into Paintings. I am Gina with the Penobscot Marine Museum in Searsport, Maine. What do you see in this painting? There's a ship in the center. In the background on the left, we see distant hills or mountains. There are a variety of smaller vessels between the ship and distant land. If those vessels look familiar, like ones we have seen in other paintings, but don't often see on the coast of Maine, you are correct. While we don't know the name of the artist, we know they were Chinese. The combination of the vessels and the land formations suggests this is in the Pearl River estuary in southeastern China. The sky is blue and there are clouds in it. Why do you think the artist chose to make some of the clouds orange? Did they capture a moment in the morning or near the end of the day? On the right side of the painting, we see another vessel. In the foreground, there are several birds, perhaps gulls. I always enjoy when the artist adds in that kind of detail. At the bottom of the painting, we are given some information. The inscription reads, CLARISSA B, CARVER, built in Searsport, 1876. So this is the ship CLARISSA B, CARVER. As we glance at the vessel, we see the crew and other people on the deck dwarfed by the masts and sails. When you look at a painting like this, do you wonder what it would be like to be on the ship? Today, I have a special narrative to share with you. Scott J. Dow was born in Searsport and grew up splitting his time between Searsport and the sea. His father, Jonathan Dow, was a sea captain. At the age of 80, Scott Dow published a book about his family's seafaring days, including his memories and excerpts from family letters and diaries. I will share more about the CLARISSA B. CARVER, as written by Scott Dow, in the story of Captain Jonathan Dow, the seafaring days of our New England family. Clarissa was a family name, the name of the wife of Isaac Carver, the builder's uncle. We always called the ship Clarissa, so hereafter we shall call the ship by that name. The Clarissa was a square-rigged, three-masted sailing ship, 1,144 tons register, 187 feet long, 34-foot beam, and 24 feet deep, and cost approximately $75,000. Ownership of vessels was divided into 64 shares, and captains were expected to own a 1/8 interest. Father probably received a salary of $75 to $100 per month, plus 10% of the ship's gross freights. Many trips were made to the shipyard, which was only 3 blocks away from our home. Finally, on a July night when the full moon pulled a flood tide, the shipyard was all set for the launching. Prepare the tallow, drive the wedges, remove the blocks and let her go. Slowly at first, then faster and faster, the ship slides down the ways and glides off into the water. But the Clarissa did not move. She stuck on the ways, and the next day a tug came from Bangor and pulled her off into the bay. Ships were not launched with their masts standing, so the Clarissa lay at anchor out in the bay for a month or so while the masts, yards, rigging, sails, etc. were being added to fully equip her to put to sea. Rigging the Clarissa was a special job and required a trained gang of 15 to 20 men. Rigging also required the stepping or setting of the masts. The mainmast, the largest of the 3 lower masts, was about 80 feet in length and probably weighed up to 8 tons. The stepping of the masts required them to be set down through an opening in the ship's deck and have the bottom of the masts rest square on the keel or backbone of the ship. Later, the 2 other sections of the masts would be set up, and at the proper time, the spars and yards would be hoisted aloft to their positions. A log and careful survey and measurements had to be made in which the length, diameter, and rake and position of the masts and various dimensions of the hull had to be taken into consideration. All the standing rigging was cut and made in the rigging loft, after which each section was tagged to be taken on board the ship to be set up at its proper place. Then miles of rope and line had to be cut up, fitted, spliced, wormed, served, and parceled to make the shrouds and stays, lifts and lanyards, halyards, sheets, tacks, braces, foot ropes, strapping blocks, and innumerable other items necessary in the mechanism of standing and running rigging. Possibly at least 8 to 10 miles of rope and cordage was required for this work. And in addition, 1,000 feet or more of chain to be separated into 40 to 50 various lengths to stay the spars and support and control the sails. This might all have been condensed into 4 words. In rigging a ship, you require spars, canvas, hemp, blocks. The main reason for the use of these miles of cordage is, of course, the fact that the rigging requires a double job, one set for the port sides of the ship and another set for the starboard side. The probable cost for rigging the Clarissa was only $900, for labor only. The wages ranged from $1 to $1.25 per day of 10 to 12-hour days. Boy apprentices received considerably less pay. The cost of rigging was not calculated on the tonnage of the ship, but on the height of the masts and the size and number of the yards of sails she carried. This work being completed, a party of friends were invited on shipboard to make the trip up the river to Bangor, where the ship was being towed to take on a cargo of lumber for Liverpool. On this trip, Scott, age 6, the youngest member of the party, apparently thought he should do something to celebrate this first sailing of his father's new ship, so he started up the rigging unobserved, and after climbing up for 135 feet to the top of the mainmast, he took his little hat off and put it on the tip-top of the mast and called out, "I have trucked her, father, I have trucked her." It must have been born in our blood. We start to be sailors when very young. Bangor, Maine, September 8, 1876. The ship has been here for a couple of weeks, taking on supplies, shipping our crew, and loading the cargo of lumber. We are now getting ready to sail. The dock is full of Searsport friends and relatives to say goodbye. Wish the captain and his family and the new ship good luck and a safe return. The Clarissa pulled away from the dock in tow of a tug and started down the river. It was a short 24 miles to where the Narrows at Bucksport and Fort Knox. We proceeded out into the widening Penobscot and when off Searsport, dropped anchor for the night. Saturday morning, with a light breeze, we had our anchor up by 9 a.m. and started down the bay, leaving Searsport, passing Camden Hills and Rockland on the west, past Vinyl Haven and Isle and by 1 p.m. Mount Desert and the shores of 100 harbors sunk below the horizon, and we were out at sea, and the voyage to Liverpool commenced. Saturday morning, our first day at sea. When a ship puts to sea, they have a roll call to check up that all hands are on board. We will commence with the captain, first mate, second mate, carpenter, steward, cook, 12 sailors, making 16 men on board, mother and 4 children. There was one passenger, Miss Bell, a musician, who wanted to make the passage on a sailing ship. She got her money's worth. We had a rough passage. There were 22 people in all on board. Thinking about a 6-year-old Scott J. Dow at the very top of the mainmast really brings this painting to life. In addition to the main painting of the Clarissa that we've been talking about, Scott Dow's story was illustrated with other images, including 3 that were published in the book. 2 are of the Clarissa and 1 of an unknown vessel. We also saw this photograph of the CLARISSA B Carver in port, and this is from the Penobscot Marine Museum's collection. And here's the bow of the model of the Clarissa with the ship's name clearly visible. The Clarissa was built in 1876. 2 years later, John Philip Sousa published the sheet music for his song Smick, Smack, Smuck, which is the song you hear accompanying the look at the painting. It was recorded in 1998 by the Music for the Nation Singers, courtesy of the Library of Congress Music Division. You can imagine it being sung, heard, or played on board the Clarissa. The Clarissa only sailed for 9 years. In this peek into paintings, we heard from the captain's son, Scott Dow, about how the ship was built and launched. In the next Peek into Paintings program, we'll explore more about the crew and how Clarissa met her demise.